Yeah, hey guys, welcome to another video. Yeah, today I want to talk about something that was quite shocking to me because I heard it on YouTube from a certain YouTuber, and I thought that this is maybe a joke, or maybe he's saying things that he's blowing out of proportion. And I said to myself then, okay, I really have to check it out myself and to go to PBC podcast actually and listen to Deontay personally, and let him talk. Okay, let him talk about his loss and how he feels right now and what his plans are for the future, because what was really shocking to me was that actually not only on YouTube but also the British magazine Mail Online said that, quote, "This is the last final straw, I see it," and that is obviously then meaning that Deontay thinks somehow about retiring. Right? So, does he really want to retire? Does he really say it in person, or is it again just a headline or maybe an assumption? But they put it here as a quote, and they gave us the source, which is, where was it? Where they talk about the PBC podcast. There you go, here. And I clicked on the link, and that's a quite a long podcast actually. And Deontay Wilder is not the only guest on there, and they talk about the heavyweight division in total, so as it is right now, and as is and in comparison to other eras of the heavyweight division, and how this stands up to the other eras and other stuff. And they also have Anthony Durrell on there on the podcast. So I don't want to really show you the whole podcast. You can go to the page and watch it and hear it yourself. But I just want to tell you what he really said concerning those statements we saw on Mail Online, okay? And before I really come to the point, you can see it's really at the almost at the very end of the interview. Deontay Wilder somehow starts to talk about in the middle of the podcast. So he first, of course, talks about how he's feeling right now, how he's dealing with the coronavirus situation, how he enjoys life in Alabama, where he lives, and that he loves the scenery, and that he loves being close to his loved ones and his best friends, obviously. So we can see again he's a very positive person, but you will also see that he's a very sensitive person, and he's also somehow at the very brink of crying in certain parts of the video, because he really knows what he's talking about, and he knows the severity of everything he's gonna say. So I want to tell you one more thing before we actually start listening to Deontay concerning his plans after his first loss against Tyson Fury. And the one thing I really have to say, and I really suggest that you really start to watch the podcast sort of in the middle to really get to know the whole context. Yeah, to really get to know the whole context Deontay is talking about. And the very important thing you always have to keep in mind is he says that something happened 15 minutes before the fight against Tyson Fury, and he says he doesn't want to talk about it right now. He doesn't want to mention it. And he also says that, or you can sort of assume that we will probably never really hear about the things he's talking about. And he's not talking about the costume. He's not talking about that his legs were down by the costume. He just said he wasn't himself, which we already know. That was stated by multiple sources. And he also says there was something going on 15 minutes before the fight actually happened, and these things that were going on then were actually the reason why he wasn't himself in the ring and why he couldn't win the fight. So it's up to anybody's guess what he really means. I hope he will one day clarify the situation, but we won't know. And now to the interesting part. Again, I will let Deontay speak, of course, and stop it here and then to give you my take on it. Okay, so here we go.
Were you surprised at how aggressive Fury was in the rematch?
No, I wasn't surprised. And I mean, I couldn't really. It's hard to explain. Like the first sound of the bell is like I was more in retreat mode. It's like I wasn't even there for real. Like I don't know how to say it without. It was just I wasn't there.
Gotcha.
That's all I can tell you. I wasn't there from the first start. I wasn't there.
So here you can already see that it's still very hard for him to cope with the fact that he lost in this fashion, and you could see that he was very emotionally touched by the question, because he was obviously reminiscing everything that happened in this fight, and you can really see by this statement only that he's really reflecting on the fight and reflecting on everything that really went wrong, because his harshest critics say that he's still delusional, and that he still doesn't want to accept the defeat, and that he does not really think about maybe changing a thing or two in one way or the other to come out victorious in the third fight, in the trilogy match. But obviously, just from answering this question alone, you can see that Deontay is really reflecting on everything. And of course, if you reflect about your first career loss after a 5-year reign and after everything you had to go through, well, then this can maybe something be so emotional for you that you really have to control yourself in order not to cry, right? So here we go.
You know, my whole body, everything, you know, but it's going to be all right. Everything's going to be all right. Trust me. You know, and I'm just looking forward to coming back in there and doing what I got to do. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to feel like I'm making any excuses or anything like that. I just want the people to know that I'm happy, I'm in full health, and I'm coming back stronger than ever.
The third fight with Ziri has been pushed back, you said, toward the end of the year. Do you think that extra time helps you to prepare?
It helps me to rest as well. You know, I was going back to back and fighting, you know, kill after kill after killer. You know, I don't think it was anyone that was on the course that I was fighting on to get to where I am now. So, you know, I'm gonna take this time, and it's been good though. You know, I'm gonna take the time. I am taking the time to sit back and enjoy family and rest. You know, I got an opportunity to really just enjoy my kids. You know, like I said, I've just been going and stop. You know, I get in camp about 3 months, but by doing that 3 months of time, I'm still, you know, working. I'm flying here, I'm doing different things, you know, and then by the time you get back home, by the time you get back in the camp, now you got to get away from your kids. And so at this point in time, I'm just loving the space. I'm just loving the unity that I'm having with my kids and just watching the babies grow and just loving on all of them at this moment in time. And so it's time to separate myself from them again.
So here you can obviously see that he's saying, okay, he fought so many times in a row without real long breaks in between those different bouts. And on top of that, he was also flying around, doing interviews, promoting the fight. And this was, of course, all taxing, as we can all imagine, although he said that this time he was building shape on top of shape on top of shape. But maybe that's just how you feel, and in the end it turns out to be the opposite. So maybe doing those big fights, as he said, so once against Brazil, then the rematch with Ortiz, and now the fight with Fury in less than a year, basically, or in a year, maybe that was because of the opposition, especially Ortiz and Fury. Maybe that was actually a bit too much for him in terms of the effects it had on his body and health and everything else. But he says again, I'm enjoying my time with the family. Now I have time for them. And when it's time to go back to camp, there won't be any time for my children anymore. So he's enjoying it. And you can see that he's now way happier again. So there are mood swings in this interview, as you can obviously see. He's way happier now simply by the sound of his voice. Which again shows that he's a peaceful man and that he is in peace with himself as a man and as a human being. But that doesn't mean, of course, that he doesn't think about his competitive spirit and his goals as a boxer. He still wants to accomplish. So let's continue.
And then Daddy had to go to work.
You mentioned the surgery earlier. I'm assuming that you'll use this time also to recover from that. Have you been given a date when you'll be able to resume working out?
I gave a date sometime at the end of May, sometime at the middle to end of May, that I'll be able to get back to working out, sparring, different things of that nature.
So the end of May, let's say, is the time when he can go back into training, which is great because the fight is supposed to happen with Fury, I think, at the very end of the year, maybe September, maybe October. But even if it is September, he still has got 3 more months of full training camp, with having rested, with having spent time with your family, or with his family in this case, and so there's still enough time left for him to actually resume training, and not as other people say that it's not enough time for him to recover physically and to build back the stamina, the strength, the technical aspects and stuff like that.
Deontay, a lot of trainers have been offering you advice through the media. Have you considered adding any extra voices to your team or listening to what those guys have been saying?
Yeah, we've been having a lot of people reach out and different things and whatnot, but you just have to be careful with that because a lot of people just see this time and they just want publicity.
Yeah.
They want to be able to say they was the name that, they was the name that came in and stuff like that. And just look at it in just a different way. That's how I'm looking at it, and that's how I know boxing. Boxing is very crooked. It's a dirty business. You got to make sure you be careful. It's a corrupt sport as well. Very. And, people, you got to be careful about the people that you bring around, what the intent of that person is trying to come in and help, especially when they never reached out before and want to see an opportunity. I've seen so much. I've been around so much. I've had people tell me things and tell me not to go do this or say this, and then they turn around and do the same shit they told me not to do. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of stuff going on in boxing. Who can you trust? But I am looking to bring someone in for sure. We don't have it down yet, but I'm definitely gonna bring. I got 2 people I'm bringing in. One of them he always come to camp on some basis or whatever. He always around, in and out anyway. But we'll see what happens. I think we got a great team that's going to be formed, getting ready. Once everything go back to normal, hopefully it'll be sooner than later, and I can get my team in order, and we can move forward with our game plan for the third fight.
Now, George Foreman says you guys had a pretty good conversation.
So he said boxing is a corrupt and dirty sport, which is true, and you have to be very careful about the people you really bring in and name your closest ones, okay? So, because there are a lot of guys who simply want to make fame off of you without actually doing anything to support you, and therefore you really have to be careful about who you bring in, because those people will be a long time around you. And as he said, some people say, well, never do this, Deontay, and then he says themselves doing that, what they supposedly would never recommend to anybody, else. So that there you can already see that he is really aware of the situation in the boxing game, and he's very careful about picking persons, but he says he will definitely bring in 2 people, but he doesn't really want to tell us right now, simply because maybe he doesn't know it himself right now yet, or as of yet, or because he wants to surprise the people, which is, I think, the real reason.
Recently, can you share what you guys spoke about?
Yeah, man, George. It was good talking to George. You know, George is one of the guys that been trying to get in touch for a good little bit, but you know, you be moving so much, and everybody have a schedule and stuff. And but you know, during this time, you know, everything is shut down. You know, so it's always good to have great conversation at this moment in time. And you know, we had a great conversation. You know, it was a real good conversation. We talked about a lot of things that went on in his career. You know, good and bad. A lot of, you know, different tricks and trades that used to happen, and certain things that he saw in this fight, and different a lot of knowledge that he applied to me. And you know, he was telling me how he wanted to show me some methods of strengthening certain parts of my body and stuff like that. So, but he definitely dropped a couple of gems down for me, you know, and it was good to see him. I think I'm gonna once everything clears up or whatever, I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna come out and go see George and see him face to face, spend some time with him, and just, you know, he take some of that good old knowledge that he have up there.
That's great.
Deontay, Fury said that he was surprised you want to fight a third time. Do you have any reaction to that?
No, I don't have no reaction. No one should be surprised. I am who I am. I'm Deontay the Brothers from the Wild, you know, and nothing's going to change about that. Why wouldn't I not want it, you know?
So, we know the thing about George. I don't want to go into detail about that because it has been reported a couple of times, or not only a couple of times, but all over the internet, that he reached out to George or vice versa. And now he was asked whether he wants to say anything concerning Tyson Fury's statement that Tyson Fury himself is surprised that he took the rematch, and he said, "No, I don't really want to say anything about it," which means he doesn't want to insult him or in any way, shape, or form be offensive against Tyson Fury. But he says, "Why wouldn't I? Right? Because I'm still Deontay Wilder, and obviously he always said that he sees himself as the true champion, so why wouldn't he, of course, right?" But you can see here again, because it's again reminiscing him of the fight, that his voice starts to become shaky again, right? And we know that Deontay is a sensitive man, and that's why I personally love him as a person, right? So obviously most of us don't know him in person, but the way he portrays himself in public is very sympathetic to me, and that's why I love him in addition to his boxing style. And let's just see what he says now, because now we come really into the phase where he talks about his retirement.
Like I said, at this moment in time, you know, we're just sitting back. There's gonna be a time and place where I'm ready to come out. There's gonna be a time and place where I say what I need to say, you know. But looking at the fight, he know that wasn't me.
So very interesting. He says there is a time when I'm coming out and where I have then the possibility to say what he has to say, but he obviously doesn't want to do it now. And it's very crazy if you see that Deontay first was really regularly posting things on Instagram, for example, on Twitter and Facebook, which he doesn't do anymore right now. So he's only giving us public information on the PBC podcast, which again shows me that there's a trust issue with other media. And as a PBC fighter, he says, okay, I'm gonna say something for my fans and for the audience in general, but only on this platform, not on any other platforms, which is not so not so easy for us, of course, to follow him, and which makes it not so widely spread what he says, because only hardcore boxing fans would go to those pages. But which again shows me that he's sort of a very loyal person, and he doesn't really trust anybody anymore. And now, when we take a look at what he says next, we can see why.
I know that wasn't many people in the boxing. Everyone know that wasn't the real Deontay Wilder. Something was wrong with him, and and we'll show. Like I said, it's a time and place for it all, and I'll reveal a lot of things, But I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to give the people what they want to see.
As you start preparing for the third fight, I guess mentally, emotionally, what's your mindset? Are you angry? Are you just motivated? Is it just business as usual? Want to prove people wrong, or all of the above?
I mean, it's all of the above.
See, it's all of the above. So he's angry. It's business. He wants to prove something. Everything the interviewer mentioned is actually what he feels. And now you can see that his self-esteem and his pride is coming back. So he's stronger right now. So as I said, there are mood changes within this interview. But being sensitive as he is, I can personally understand him quite well, because it's the same with me. So I don't have mood swings like from minute to minute, but it can be daily, and so from day to day, and yeah. So I really get why he acts the way he, and why he speaks the way he does.
It's more fuel to the fire. As I look at it as well, this is set up for, the third will even set up even bigger, So this is going to be it right here. This is the last final straw right here, as I see it.
So that's now the statement that was mentioned on the magazine. The last final straw, as I see it. So you could obviously always argue, why should it be the last straw? I mean, there are guys who lost 5 to 6 times in their career and were multiple heavyweight world champions. So several times, 2-time, 3-time heavyweight world champions, for example, like Muhammad Ali, for example, or Evander Holyfield, a 4-time heavyweight world champion, and they all have losses on their resume. But what I see here, and he doesn't say it right now in this sentence, but he says it a bit later on. He then says, well, there are certain people around that are not good for you, and certain people who use your trust in them for their own benefits, because they are jealous, because they want to be in your position, but they don't want to put the work in. That's what he's going to say. And some people go simply by money, and would even, so to speak, cheat a friend simply for the money. And having said this, or having said all of that, means that Deontay feels, he doesn't fear it, but he feels that he's not really wanted on the top of the division. And let's just see what he says.
And it's all the above. I'm counting everything in that happened, everything that happened towards me. I'm cutting my grass, getting rid of all the snakes in the grass. It's a lot of things. This time just allowed me to look back and just to really dig in the weeds and see what was going on. You know what I'm saying? You can have a lot of great people around you, but certain jealousy of people you just can't control. You get to a certain level and you think people are happy with you, but everybody wants certain things. Everybody wants what you have, but they don't want to work as hard as you or sacrifice as much as you. So people get envy of the things that they can't have, and it's one of the things I had to weed out and had to change up some certain things. But it's gonna be good, man. I can't wait. I think he should look forward to it. Don't worry about if I won or not. Just look forward to seeing me there when it's time.
I've followed a lot of fighters have gone through a similar ups and downs. It's a hell of a journey, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, people don't understand. Boxing is a business like none other. It's a sport that you gotta be able to trust people. And that's the hard part. You know, being able to trust people that's around you. You know, you can get some people that'll be around you for years and never show signs of anything until that moment that they, you know, get offered something or someone come along and try to do, man, so many different ways, just like it's so many different ways to make money in boxing. You know, boxing is one of these sports where, you know, we do as we do, you know, free. That's why I say the things I say and I speak how I speak, you know, because I understand how cruel this sport is. You know what I mean? I mean, look at this sport. You know, if you don't make it in boxing and you spend your whole years of career devoting and putting in everything you got in the boxing, if you don't make it, then you stuck. After we don't have retirement plans. We don't have, you know, 401ks that they set up for us and different things. It's like in boxing, either you make it or you don't. And you don't make it, then you just straight fuck.
So he speaks very clearly about the boxing business and how hard it is. So if you cannot stay on top basically or reach the top to begin with, then you simply don't make it. You simply don't make enough money off of it. So it's very interesting to get these insights from him. And the jealousy that he talks about is a huge thing, because most of Deontay's critics criticize him because he's not the best technical boxer. But maybe jealousy has something to do with that, guys. So if you say, for example, or if you entertain the possibility that maybe your trainers are too jealous of you and they could teach you better things, they could actually make you a better fighter, a better boxer, and in shorter time, and they simply don't do it, well, what is that called then? It's jealousy, right? It's jealousy. There's no other way to describe it, because I mean he's been with JD's and Mark Breland now for really the beginning of his career. So since the beginning of his career. So for, let's say, well, if you take his amateur starting point into consideration, for 14 years now. So if he hadn't learned all that much, maybe it isn't because of Deontay. Maybe it is because they didn't want to teach him each and everything, because they are jealous of him. Which is insane, of course, if you think about it, because they get paid by simply letting Deontay fight. But, well, that could be a reason, right? So maybe there isn't now the time for an actual trainer change. Something he didn't really want to do because he trusted them. And he trusted them blindly, which was maybe a mistake, right? So very interesting to see. And he says either you make it or not. And that's also how to say it, that's also his pride, his fighting mentality. He wants to be at the top. He doesn't want to be a follower. He wants to be at the top. He wants to be the champion. And if he cannot be the champion for whatever reason, either because he's not the best, or because there are people who hinder him from actually becoming better, or who simply don't want to watch him again because he lost because he lost the first time, which is so ridiculous, especially in the heavyweight division. Well, maybe then you have to think about something like retirement, right? And he says there is no health insurance, there is no retirement funds, there's nothing going on like that in boxing. So of course, at some point you have to make a decision for yourself. So let's continue.
Basic, plain and simple. You know, so with that being said, it just, when you're dealing with money, money is the root of all evil. And a lot of evil shit goes on in boxing. It's a lot of things that I had to see for my own self, a lot of things that I experienced that very night for myself, you know, which is still something that has scratched my head. We try to put it together, but, you know.
Deontay, in closing, do you have anything you'd like to say to your fans?
To all my fans, first off, I just want to tell you guys, especially my day ones, that I love you so much. You know, thank you for the love and the support. Thank you for the support that you've been giving me during these times. You know, I know I'm a king. I know I'm a great king. I know I'm a great leader. I've led y'all so far. I know I'm an inspiration to so many. I know I motivate so many. And just want to tell you guys that I'm still here. I'm not going nowhere. We're not going nowhere at all.
So now his confidence is coming back. His sound is sounding way better now because he knows it's still not over, but he's entertaining the possibility, right? And that's basically it. He gives us a bomb squad at the end, a huge one, by the way. And yeah, that's basically the summary or the analysis of the Deontay Wilder's podcast with PBC. So I know this is a sort of a longer video, but thank you for tuning in and thank you for watching it, and hopefully you liked it. And yeah, as always, see you soon.